What are uterine contractions and how will you know if you're in labor? Hey moms, I'm Dr. Shaunna Mason. I am a board certified OBGYN and I am here to help you learn all about your body as it gets ready for labor, while you deliver, and while you recover with your newborn postpartum. So, how do you know if you're in labor? I think this is one of the most common questions that I get at the end of pregnancy. And I think kind of the common response is you'll know. There's no way to not know. You'll know when you're in labor. But I think there is a bigger question there, understanding what your body's actually doing and how will you know if you're in labor. So let's get started. So let's learn about the uterus. The uterus is a smooth muscle that grows to accommodate your pregnancy. Remember, it started really small when you saw that first little ultrasound with that little bitty bean baby in there and has now grown to accommodate your full size, almost here newborn, about the size of a watermelon. And the uterus is really an incredible muscle that is able to adapt and change and develop all of these resources to not only grow a human inside your body, but to facilitate getting that human out of your body through contractions and labor. So, what is a smooth muscle? Is a muscle that contracts or spasms using different signals than our nervous system. So, skeletal muscle is what allows our body to move. So, our nervous system sends a signal to our muscles if we want to stretch out our arm or we want to grab a hold of something, right? The smooth muscles in our body work a little bit differently than that. And so the uterus specifically uses hormones or chemicals that are released at the end of pregnancy that bind to these receptors, and then they stimulate these rhythmic and relatively involuntary contractions of the muscle. So some of these chemicals include hormones like oxytocin and prostaglandins, and these are released at increasing levels towards the end of our pregnancy. So, how will you know if you're transitioning from these early practice contractions, which we commonly refer to as Braxton Hicks, to active, strong labor contractions where you might need to go to the hospital if that's where you're planning on delivering? So, Braxton Hicks we refer to as baby practice contractions. So, as these hormones start to be released towards the end of pregnancy, very common to start experiencing these anytime in your third trimester or after about 28 to 30 weeks. And these are little practice contractions where some chemicals are being released, they bind to the receptors, and the uterus maybe does little practice contractions. You may feel it in one part of your belly or describe it as the baby getting really hard and tight. And those are contractions. They just aren't strong enough to produce cervical change, which is when we think you are in active or strong labor. So, as you get towards the end of pregnancy, your body will start releasing more and more of these chemicals, and they will bind in an organized way to these receptors, and then the whole uterus will undergo a contraction. And that's when they get really strong and they kind of stop you in your tracks and catch your breath, right? And eventually, when you are transitioning into active labor, you will start experiencing what is taught in many, many birth classes as the 5-1-1 rule. So let's go over exactly what that means. So as the uterus gets ready for labor and starts using these chemicals to have entire muscle contractions, there will come a rhythm or a cadence to these contractions where they build up, they peak, and then they relax, and then you get a break. And that timing will increase in frequency until those contractions get to be every 5 minutes apart. That's the 5 in that rule. Now, contractions don't usually come on like a freight train. Now, sometimes they do. They wake moms from sleep and they are every 5 minutes, and there's no doubt that they're in labor. But for most of us, it's more of a buildup where maybe contractions are coming and going. And they may start at every 20 minutes and then get to every 12 and then every 8 and then they're every 5. And maybe you've done some things to troubleshoot those Braxton Hicks that you had already been experiencing, thinking that's all this is at first, and the contractions just aren't going away. So something like a warm bath or a shower, emptying your bladder, getting off your feet, these sorts of things aren't making those contractions slow down at all. In fact, they are becoming more predictable, more rhythmic, to where you could look at the clock and think, I'm about to have another contraction. So when they build up to every 5 minutes apart, that's when we really think that you are transitioning into the active or productive part of labor. Now, the one in the 5-1-1 rule, that first one is the cadence, the length of the contraction, the intensity of the length of the strong part of the contraction. Right. So we talked about there being kind of a buildup, a peak, and a relaxation cadence to these contractions. So when that intensity lasts about 30 to 60 seconds or 1 minute, you can feel like these are actual strong productive contractions. So they're more than just a little tight and uncomfortable. They are lasting for a minute. They are taking your breath away. You could stop in your tracks. You wait for it to be over. That is when we think the contractions are strong enough to be getting us into labor. And when that predictability, that rhythm has lasted at least 1 hour, so that's the second one in the 511 rule, we think it's a good idea to go ahead and head to the hospital, that there is a very good chance that you are in active labor and it is time to have your baby. I hope that you found this video helpful. I know understanding how your body's changing can be really overwhelming at the end of pregnancy. And even though you may be seeing your doctor every week, it's hard to sometimes even know what to ask. It's hard to know what to put on your birth plan. It's hard to know all of these things. I've dropped a link below to my free birth plan. I think that it is so many beautiful birth plans out there and you can download them, but you don't really understand what all of it means. So I've also built a free companion guide that you can watch, and we go through step by step all the things that moms should be including on their birth plan, including the things you don't really want to happen there and how to navigate all of those and what they might mean, situations you might find them in. So I hope you found this video really helpful. Come back every week. I'm going to be here every Friday posting new videos to help you learn about your body and how you're getting ready for labor, what to expect during your recovery in the hospital, and how to navigate your postpartum recovery with your newborn. So share it with friends so we can reach more people. Drop comments below and let me know topics that you're just dying to learn about. And I look forward to learning together.